Start there, friends. That is a scary place for the country to be, and the scary place for our president to be as well. In a moment, Charlie Dent, Mark McKinnon, Jessica Anderson on if the president's very public stunts can distract the public from this fact of how out of control things feel. Just 6 months away from the midterms, Congressman Suhas Subramaniam, one of the many who keep alleged wrongdoing by turning on the Epstein smoke machine and yelling fire, but never show us the fire. We'll ask about it. First, our Why It Matters segment tonight. For many, Trump, like the country, feels out of control. And the country wants a win. President Trump is seeking a win, maybe desperately seeking one. And to be fair, there's a lot of material wins for Trump that are universally good for America. The S&P 500 is very near record highs. Lower than expected inflation today. Massive new investment in America. The Lebanese and Israelis just meant to hammer out a possible peace treaty. Something that I never thought I would say in my lifetime. Plus, the Arab world is lining up behind America to fight Iran and ally with Israel. Yet, the issue that will most define President Trump's legacy is still in limbo. The president claims the Iranians are desperate for a deal. We've heard that one before, but any objective reading shows Trump needs a deal far more than the Iranians do. New polling shows just 24% of Americans say the war has been worth it, at least so far. That could change. Trump is clearly getting more anxious by the day, telling the New York Post today that talks could restart as soon as Thursday. The vice president seemed to be claiming tonight that the fact that the Iranians are meeting with U.S. officials is somehow a win.
The United States had never had meetings at that level with the Iranian government in 49 years. Like it's a meeting that had never before happened. Not Democrat, not Republican. We had never had a meeting like that where you have, the person who's effectively running the country in Iran sitting across from the vice president of the United States. That had never happened.
Yes, it is a win for somebody. It is an enormous win for the Iranians. Trump is the most powerful man in the world, or at least the free world. Yet he is not yet feeling in control right now. The Iranians successfully held the world's economy hostage with the Strait of Hormuz. Now it seems like the timeline for any deal may be on the Iranians' terms, not ours. The president is throwing every distraction at the wall to see what sticks. Yesterday, he staged a DoorDash delivery to highlight no taxes on tips. That did not go as planned. Twitter was quick to highlight how in this economy a senior citizen has to work for DoorDash to make ends meet. In fact, the $1,000 refund increases predicted earlier this year by the White House fact sheet turned out to be substantially less than half. Fact sheet staged deliveries are the political harbinger of doom. Long ago, the White House lost control of the story. Now, some supporters of his, like Bill O'Reilly, are left saying Americans need to effectively toughen up and accept more of a sacrifice to fight Iran. Are you perhaps overestimating how much America really cares about what the Pope says about this war and Donald Trump's ego and annoyance with the Pope versus a lot of Americans who just want this war won and then for gas prices to come down?
Well, what are we all, 5 years old now? I mean, is that what we are? Anything worthwhile is very, very difficult.
I agree.
And you have to pay a high price.
Many of his fervent supporters, the president's fervent supporters on the right, aren't so much angry but exacerbated. His Trump as Jesus tweet didn't help. Evidence of that feeling of out of control. The Epstein files continue to dog him, not because there's any evidence of wrongdoing, but because they continue to feel icky. That's something the Democrats continue to hammer at. For any president heading into the midterms, this is a bad place to be. There are signs of a president who needs a win. A country that feels they need a win. And a win needed to feel like a win for the president. It's a far cry from the man who proudly touted the comeback of American truckers from an 18-wheeler on the White House lawn. He jumped into a garbage truck to troll Joe Biden. It worked quite well. Famously worked the drive-thru of a Pennsylvania McDonald's to troll Kamala. It worked. All that seemed authentic. It met the mood of the country. Fast forward to today, and none of it's working. Wins don't come easy for the country or for a president. Just ask Joe Biden. And the more Trump searches for the easy win, the more desperate he appears right now. With us now, former Pennsylvania Congressman Charlie Dent, Mark McKinnon, creative executive producer of The Circus on Showtime, Jessica Anderson, former associate director of the Office of Management Budget under the Trump administration. Jessica, ladies first, back in your old day, you probably would have prepared these. This is the fact sheet the White House just sent out. I will warn you or remind you, to preface this question, that the Biden White House used to always say, no, it is not a reality problem. It is a perception problem. We're not selling our wins enough. But I will ask you the question, is the problem for the Trump White House a perception problem or a reality problem?
Well, I would say that it's way too early to write President Trump's obituary with voters, right?
Sure.
And that is a little bit of reality and it's a little bit of perception. What is true and what voters know, first and foremost, everything you just described, they're feeling. But what they also know is that the alternative of Democrats over the next 2 years and impeachment and chaos, if they were to lose the House and the Senate, is worse. And even independents are feeling that in these swing states like North Carolina and Michigan and Ohio. So you can have a split
the best thing that Republicans have going for them or President Trump has going for them is Democrats.
The best thing that is the easiest to explain is the chaos of Democrats and the extremism like we're seeing on the ground with some of these candidates in Michigan. That is the split screen to then President Trump beginning to talk about the economic wins and what still needs to be done with this foreign war in Iran.
And look, Democrats have had a bad couple of days, especially with the Eric Swalwell news coming out. This is one of sort of the firebrand members of the Democratic Party. Leading candidate for California governor had to drop out because of sexual assault allegations. His best friend is the senator from Arizona who was grilled on the relationship today. Take a listen.
You have future political ambitions. How can people trust you to run for higher office if you didn't know that your best friend was engaging in even inappropriate behavior?
I messed up. I'm human. I trusted this man.
In the beginning, you said when you first heard these rumors a few weeks ago, that's when you called him. Then you said you've heard these rumors for years. So which one is it, Senator?
So I heard rumors of him being flirty.
And that wasn't an issue enough for you to not trust him to watch your kids or be close with him?
Mark McKinnon, does this stick?
Oh, listen, I mean, I think we've got examples of this on both sides of the aisle. I don't think I don't think this is going to be a voting issue for voters. On the macro issue of Trump, I mean, Jessica, I have to disagree with you on this notion that people perceive the Democrats as chaos. They perceive President Trump as chaos. He is chaos. That's his brand. That's what he campaigned on, and that's what he's delivering. And the thing about Trump is that this is exactly what voters wanted. They wanted somebody to come in and break stuff. They wanted something untraditional, unconventional. They got that for a while, and then they decided they didn't like the chaos, and that's when they got sleepy Joe Biden. Then they said, no, we want more chaos. Now they're getting a lot of chaos, and maybe we're getting to the point where people are saying, wait a minute, we didn't mean break everything. So I think it's just a point. But again, Trump is it's a big swing, right? I mean, the whole Middle East play is classic Trump. And it's him thinking, I'm going to do something that no other president could do. I'm going to fix something that's been a problem for 47 years. Well, he's finding out now why it's been a problem for 47 years. And if he doesn't fix it, it's going to be a big problem for him.
Yeah, immense. Bill O'Reilly called it the biggest gamble of President Trump's life. He's taken big wins. Charlie, we always want to be fair about things on this show. It's why people watch, not left versus right, right versus wrong. Is the president getting a fair shake? We'll go through this list. The S&P 500 at an all-time high completely has exceeded expectations in terms of investment into the United States. The Iranians are completely degraded. We'll see how things go from here. Gas prices are still lower than when the war in Ukraine broke out. Is he being graded on a fair standard?
I think he is. And I think, it's fair. The economy it's been okay, although prices are higher than they should be, particularly with gasoline. We all know that. But I do think this president, though, he's his own worst enemy, though, when it comes to these issues. I mean, it's his own conduct in office that is killing him, in addition to the angst that voters feel about the economy. While the numbers on the S&P, as you pointed out, are pretty good, voters aren't feeling the love. I mean, between housing prices.
So how does he get a win?
Well, how does he get a win? If he maybe could change his behavior, that would help. I mean, rather than fight with the Pope, mocking Bob Mueller when he dies and Rob Reiner and, the Obamas as apes and images. I mean, doing this conduct in office is just simply bad. And I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, I think he should I think he should retreat on the tariff issue, which I think has been a complete disaster. Luckily for us, the economy hasn't tanked as much as we thought it would because of that issue, but it's still terrible policy, and people are feeling the pain, particularly in agricultural states. So I think he needs to change some of his policies. He needs to change his rhetoric, but I'm not holding out hope that he'll change. He's a
he never has. To be fair, he's won 2 elections as president, right?
Yeah.
And you're looking at this from a midterm perspective. At what point do Republicans get worried about this?
Right now, I don't think anyone is worried. No one is worried about...
You would be the only one, because all the Republicans I talk to are worried.
They're saying it, and what we're hearing from voters is the concerns of impeachment on the other side that would come if Democrats take over, and an acknowledgement that turning the economy around, securing the border, crime and safety, and frankly, global peace takes time. So the win for President Trump, I actually think tomorrow's going to be a great day, tax day. Americans are going to fill in their taxes and tax returns and refunds.
Even if it's not as much as they expect.
They're 11% higher. That is a great number. Over $3,000 on average more is coming back to American families. They're going to feel that. This is what Republicans have been waiting for.
11% is $3,000. The average family gets a $30,000 refund?
In addition. It's an increase. It's their increase.
Okay, I'm thinking about the math. I got to get McKinnon in here, the last point. This breaking just in the past couple of minutes, Mark, that President Trump is now going to say tomorrow morning in an interview that the war with Iran is, quote, close to over, and refer to it in the past tense. Can he move on that easily? We know the Iranians want to. Can he?
I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, this is an issue that even economists say if it stopped tomorrow, which I think is highly unlikely.
Yeah, economists are wrong about the tariffs too, though. Come on.
But listen, the economic impact of what's transpired so far is going to last at least 200 days, which is into the midterm. So I think there's going to be an economic overhang no matter what happens. And listen, I do think, it's the data now that's turning Senate that is talking about. It's a very high possibility now the Democrats take the Senate. Yes, Republicans are freaking out all over the place. I talk to them all the time, and they're really worried about their chances. And by the way, that's the existential thing for Trump. It's not Iran. It's not tariffs. It's not this. It's having a Democratic-controlled Senate and House, and he better get on that fast.
Yeah, Charlie, feels like Democrats are counting their chickens a little bit too early.
Well, look, they're in a strong position. A midterm election is
always in a strong position.
Yeah, well, it's always about the president and his party and the economy and his conduct in office. Yeah, the Democrats' image ratings are bad. That's true. But it's really not about them. It's about the president and the Republican Party. And I would agree with Mark that the Republicans are freaking out about these dynamics. I mean, independent voters are just moving hard to the Democrats. We've seen a series of special elections and an off-year election where there's been significant Democratic overperformance and Republican underperformance. We just saw this race.
I'm going to give you the last one.
We just saw the race down in Texas. Look at an 11-point win in a ruby red district like that. That's catastrophic.
There's a lot of time between now and the midterms, and I think that's why there's a lot of ease with Republicans that are actually working with voters and talking to them. We see it in our focus groups. We see it on the ground, door to door. There are concerns. Is Iran going to wrap up? That is real. That concern.
No, the president's trying to wrap it up.
That's right. That concern is real. But the best thing that the president did, I think, was this last week when he said, look, gas prices might be a little bit higher for the next few weeks, and we're going to own it. And the more he's honest with voters, the more likely they are to trust him, which puts them in the best position heading into November.
We all know who's getting screwed with gas prices. It's all of us. Tomorrow we're going to have who's actually getting rich off of gas prices. A little bit of an investigation here. Charlie Dent, Mark McKinnon, Jessica Anderson, thank you all very much.